If anyone doesn't know me, my name is Matthew Ruffey. I'm currently the board president for Chicago Market. I've had the pleasure of serving in this role since about 2021. Joined the board in 2020 after getting back, finding out about Chicago Market in 2019 when we moved back from the UK. A Detroit boy originally, so in about 3 hours, James and I will start worrying about the Lions score instead of the Bears score. But we just really, really love Chicago and love that connection to local that this is going to have. Separate from what I do for Chicago Market, I'm an SSA commissioner. I'll tell you more about that over drinks or something over at Two Bears. I'm the Friends of Uplift, which is a school just down the way, but I'm the board treasurer over there. Help with the Grow Uptown Gardens, and most importantly, Uptown resident, volunteer, owner, and future shopper of Chicago Market. So really excited to be here, and thank you all for being a part of this. That was supposed to say my name the whole time. I'll get better at this. So let's talk about, before we get everything kicked off, I just want to talk about the cooperative vision, and why are we here, and what are we building, and why are we building this? Because I think no matter whether the project moves fast, really, really fast at the speed we want it to do, is delayed sometimes. We'll talk more about that in a second. But no matter what's happening on that, what we're driving towards, what we're trying to do is so important. And so I just want to remind us all that in Chicago Market, our vision is building a better food community. Local, sustainable, connected. We're building a better food community powered by our owners. We create and strengthen local food connections that are honest, accessible, educational, and inspiring. We're a cooperative grocery store, and we measure our success on a triple bottom line: people, planet, prosperity. But more than that, we're a gathering place and a vibrant community resource. So in a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and whenever you talk to any of the board members or the volunteers, or when you're talking to each other, as owners, check yourself on some of that. Check us on some of that. If you ever feel like we're not striving toward that vision, if we're not driving that right direction, that's something that you hear us talk about a lot on the board meetings. But please, feel free, come talk to us. Come talk to us about what you feel is succeeding on that front or what is not. Because that's very, very important that we're always striving toward that. Today, just walking you through a little bit of what we're going to talk through. We're going to talk about a year in review, so that's a little bit about the past year. Kate, our treasurer, is going to come up and give you a bunch of great information about the financials with our treasurer's report. Dana, sitting over here to my right, your left. Our vice president will talk you through some of the logistics on board elections. She's going to talk to you about our awesome candidate slate that we have, as well as some volunteering, business owner thank yous. At the end of the day, we're all volunteers. We have one amazing employee, Dan Arnett, who's in the back. He's going to come up and talk to you about a bunch of great stuff. Now let's do that. Yep. Dan. Speaking of Dan, so then he'll come up and he'll give you a general manager's report. After that, and I'm honestly excited to sit and see this too. We've gotten glimpses of pieces of this, but I'm so excited to see them sit down and talk. That was a lot of S's in one sentence in the microphone. But John Law and Dan are going to come and just sit down and have a chat about sustainability in the co-op. We'll open it up for Q&A, of course, and then just as a reminder, after we finish, don't forget to go again, talk to these amazing vendors that have come out, talk to us. And if you're up for it, we're going to go right around the corner, which is Wilson and Clifton. So if you go out the front door, it's literally a block down the way to a little place called Two Bears Tavern. And you can feel free to join us for a little bit less formal gathering. One weird thing about reports like this, if you're not familiar with it, we work on a fiscal year, it's not a calendar year. So every so often it just sounds weird because we're talking about things between July of last year and June of this year, technically. I think for many of you that have sat through these before, that's pretty normal. But just in case you hear us say stuff that sounds like it's in the now but might be a couple of months old, that's why. Fear not, that's just how the overall things work. All right. So before we get into that agenda, I just want to address the elephant in the room. Or, I think, more importantly, the fact that we could fit an elephant in this room still, and that we're not, struggling because there's aisles here, there's shoppers here, there's 70-plus employees here. That's not what we wanted to see. We all know that. We've heard the word delay many, many times in this project. The past year has been filled with significant milestones and progress forward. We're going to talk a lot about that for the rest of this program. We're going to talk about things like our partnership with Shared Capital and another cooperative bank that are helping us to get the funding that we need to succeed. We're going to talk about amazing farmer partnerships that Dan has put together, and Grant and the whole board, the people that are working every day to try to make this all happen. We're going to talk about a really great thing that happened with our TIF funding and what we've been able to do to secure the funding for the project. Finalization of critical design elements that we have. But I'd be very remiss if I didn't first say thank you all for your patience, thank you all for your understanding, and thank you for letting us work through some really, really difficult times as we navigate the delays and challenges that we've encountered. Permitting delays, which is about our biggest blocker right now, they're very, very close. Dan, who we just all applauded, I applaud him every day because this is 90% of what he's doing. He is on some of the most boring calls you will ever be on in your life are dealing with permitting. And Karen can attest to this. And he's doing this, and he's dedicating so much time and resource to this, which is absolutely what needs to happen. But he's really confident that the main delays are getting behind us now, and in the coming months we'll be having construction started. Interestingly, when co-ops used to talk about time to open, they used to always talk about 8 to 10 years. It's a long time. Post-pandemic, we've started to see countrywide that go up between and almost assuredly hitting 10 plus years for new co-ops, including some that are opening right in our neighborhood. We have an amazing co-op up in Rogers Park with Wild Onion that we're super excited that they're open, and that took, I think they were on their 11th, almost into their 12th year. So, we're seeing that time, but it doesn't mean that the word delay is any easier when we talk about it. I can tell you that while we do say that word, I feel confident, and I believe the whole board stands up when we say that we remain steadfast in our commitment and are making progress. And again, we're going to talk more about that progress here today. Together, we're building a store that reflects more than just the shared values, or more than just a store. It's about the shared values and a hub for our community. It's not something that's built overnight, but it is something that's worth waiting for. So again, thank you for waiting with us and working through this with us. None of this, let me repeat that, none of this would happen without the owners that are in this room and that are virtual and hopefully seeing us on video later. Hi, owners in the future. But we have about 2,400 plus owners that are all in this together with us. That's amazing. Your contributions not only help us to move closer to our goal financially, but you are the ones that drive us to do what we're doing every day. You continue to inspire our all-volunteer board. We're 100% volunteer. You continue to inspire, and I hear it every time that me and Dan and I talk, you continue to inspire him. Our first and currently only employee, that will change soon. I can't wait until that changes. But you drive him to do the good that he's doing. You also help to inspire all of the volunteers that show up every time that we're doing something. The people that are here today, thank you again so much for volunteering to be here today. This is all driven because people care, because people want this to happen. Now, I can't wait to tell you that we can't be here for this next meeting because we have aisles and we're open and we're in construction. I can't wait for that to happen. It's not today, but that's okay. Thank you for that aside. And with that, let's get back to the programming that we were talking about on the agenda. So let's start to talk about some of the progress that we have seen. When we talk about financials, and Kate, our treasurer, is going to talk to you a lot more about this in a few minutes, so I'll keep this short. In this past, again, fiscal year, right, so July of last year to June of this year, we announced the closing of that first major loan from Shared Capital. For those of you that follow our emails and see our blogs, some of this is going to be a repeat, but that's okay. That was and continues to be a huge, huge step forward for us. We've also been working diligently to provide all the needed documents and details for the main bank loan from another cooperative bank. That's effectively covering both the bridge loan that we have for our TIF, and again, Kate's going to talk more about this, but also the traditional loan, which would be an SBA-backed loan, which is Small Business Administration. But all of that is pieces that are needed in order to move forward, and we've really secured the majority of that through this year. When we talk about store design and permitting, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Permitting, there we go. The electrical solution, this was a big challenge. And Dan, I don't know how much you're going to get into on this, but watching Dan and John and the board and Chris and everybody work through this on how we're going to deal with all these electrical issues, working with ComEd, working with CTA, every step is interesting here. We love the fact that we are right underneath these train tracks. Every so often, when it comes to something like electrical or maybe natural gas hookups, being under train tracks is an interesting challenge. And so in this past year, we have worked through those. We've worked through those challenges. We have approvals, thank you Dan, we have approvals for the gas and electrical plans. We have the CTA, who as our landlord has signed off on all these plans. We are working through kind of a final lease amendment right now that's going to open up where we need to put an electrical pad. All of that has happened. Permit drawings all went in March. They've gone back and forth as permits do, but the permits are all in. That was a big success. And departmental programming is another piece. Dan, on top of all these other things he does, reports to the board on a regular basis about what does he see as the vision for how we make this store what we believe it needs to be. And so has been talking to us department by department. Here's what I think we're going to do. Here's what I think we're going to hire. Here's how I think we're going to make this a success. And it's been really, really positive through this year to see that next step taken. Because it was always just talking in theoreticals previously, and now we're talking so much more about what is actually happening. I'd be remiss on this if I didn't thank a person in the audience, Karen. Karen has stepped up and really done an amazing job on the project management of this, has helped us so much in taking thoughts out of Dan's head, thoughts out of my head, thoughts out of John's head, and pulling this together on timelines that we can look at and understand. When we talk about additional store planning, this again goes back to Dan doing all these farm visits. He's going to talk to you more about this. It's amazing watching and going to these farms. I've had the pleasure of being out at some of these visits. Grant and I have come along with them sometimes. And this is, if you ever need a karmic recharge, this is your karmic recharge. Go out to a farmer and talk to them about a store of our size opening in this market. And it doesn't just, they don't just say, oh, that's great, I'm going to be able to sell more to you. We have farmers down in Pembroke that are saying, I wasn't sure if I'm going to be able to keep this generational farm and hand it to the next generation. But I think with a store like yours, and it's not just us, right? We're building this store that builds a community hub. That is for the community to use, but that also means it's a reason for a farmer to make the trip into Chicago. Once they're here, it's so much easier for them to go to Wild Onion Co-op and drop off some to a much smaller store, to go to Dill Pickle, to go to Sugar Beet. And we're working with all of those co-ops to make sure that this benefits all. The beautiful part though, it doesn't just benefit the co-ops. I'm talking to Mo over at Uptown Deli. I don't know if you ever go over there, if any of you live over Sheridan and Lawrence Way. Small aside, if you're on Instagram, follow him. It's the craziest Instagram you'll ever see. But we talked to him, and he would really like to have better fruits and vegetables in his store. Can't do it on his own. Knows that if he has a store like us here, we're like an anchor store in a mall, for those of you old enough to remember when malls were successful. But if we call Chicago that mall, we're an anchor store for that. So when we're out visiting farmers and producers, and they're telling us that this difference is going to make a difference not just to the bottom line, but to what they can do, to their livelihood, and to what they're going to be able to plant in the ground for years coming forward, you can't help but get really, really excited. On the human resources side of things, hiring, planning, underway. Human resources side of things, big shout outs to Dan, again, common thread through this. Dana, absolutely Dan, yep. Sonia, and some other board members that have stepped up to really, Anthony I think has been a part of this, to be able to talk about what's going to happen when we do hire all these people. We need plans in place, but we need more than just plans. We need employment documentation. We need to know what the insurance is going to be like. And all of those things for years have been pretty easy, like, oh yeah, we're going to get to that. We're getting to that now. We have to get to that now. And they've been doing a really, really great job of helping us to take it through not just what the individual jobs look like, but what do those job descriptions look like? What does our overall plan look like? How do we build policies and practices that balance being an employee-centric workplace while still being able to be a successful store? That's an interesting challenge, right? We have to do well as a store in order to do good to our employees, and to do good in the neighborhood, to do good to all of our neighbors in our community. And employment is definitely a big, big piece of that. So thank you again for all those that are putting work into that. On the owner growth side, not our biggest owner growth year, but that's okay. Once we put some construction paper in these windows and we talk about things happening now, we're going to see that number spike. But we did welcome 86 new owners in that past fiscal year. I believe the number put us at 2,416 at the end of June, and we're right around 2,430 right now, so we're continuing to grow. The rate in which owners are choosing to become owners, we have those two ownership levels, so we have a founding owner, and we have a cultivating owner. We are seeing about a 20% choice going to cultivating, which is great. At the end of the day, cultivating is just helping us to have more funds to be able to do what we need to do. It also comes with in-store recognition. I will remind you, if you know anyone that's interested in that, that is something that only has a limited life. Once we put up that wall, or whatever Dan's going to do to have this beautiful mural to show the success of all the cultivating owners and what you helped us to bring, that's the last time that that's going to be available. So if you know anyone, we also have level up programs. I think we saw a handful of level up program owners happen where they moved from a founding ownership to a cultivating ownership. And all of that happened in that past year. So we're very, very excited, again, about owner growth, about the HR side, and about some of the store build-out. I'm not going to list every item that we do when we talk about things that we do around Uptown, but this certainly is something that excites me. There's only so much you can do in a store that's not open yet. Just the reality of it. But what we can do is we can empower, we can take the volunteers and the board and everyone else that's here to really try to amplify our message across the community. So people within that organization, within that team, have helped us by tabling every week at the Uptown Farmers Market. For those of you who remember, 4 years ago, Chicago Market started the Uptown Farmers Market in our own parking lot. Our parking lot's not ideal for a farmer's market. A little tough to run strollers through, but it was a really great start. The Uptown Farmers Market has now expanded immensely. We're seeing an average of 30 to 35 vendors per week, when I think it was 12 to 16 when we first started. The farmers market has split up. Some people still ask me, like, well, isn't the farmers market Chicago market? They are actually two different things, and we've made an intentional split on that. Uptown Farmers Market is working through some nonprofit status right now. But again, Chicago Market and Uptown Farmers Market are absolutely intertwined. It's another way that we're serving our community by bringing access to great food, a place for community to come together. And so we're really excited that the volunteers that have tabled there every single day, last year and this year at the market, has certainly helped to get our word about us out and help Uptown Farmers Market grow. We've also tabled and given building tours to things or during things like the Uptown Art Walk. We hosted the Holiday Pop-Up Market during the Uptown Winter Walk last year. We tabled at the Uptown Wine Walk with our amazing partner, Candid Wines. We tabled at the Uptown Wellness Festival, actually over at X Market. A couple of you asked me before, are we worried about X Market? No, we're not. We like them, we want them to succeed. That's great, it's a very different business model. We're fine. We tabled over there, we liked it, it's good. We got to table at the Argyle Night Market, always a fun place to be. We hosted a fair trade tour, and we partnered with Chicago Fair Trade, who are sitting right here. Chicago Fair Trade, if you're not familiar with them, they're amazing. They're also just up the street. They opened, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's the world's first Fair Trade Museum. World's first, not Chicago's first, not Illinois' first, the world's first Fair Trade Museum. And that happened right in our community. And that happened, and we got to talk to them. And actually, I think the Chamber of Commerce and Uptown United brought us together first when you were looking for a place to be. And we looked to say, well, my goodness, if we're right down the street from each other, we have all these aligned values, we have all these aligned partners, you know, it just makes so much sense. And so we're really excited that Uptown now has that first ever, world's first Fair Trade Museum. We got to table at some events that they did, like Chicago Fair Trade's Global Fest. We provided interior tours, and we still do this on a regular basis for some of the architectural center visits. So they do some walking tours around here. I did it with my parents when they were in town. Highly recommend. It's really, really neat to get a different view into what Uptown is. But we're so privileged that they come here. They come to the Gerber Building. Couple quick facts. Gerber Building, this building that we're standing in, was opened on December 12th of 1923. So our building just turned, is over 100 years old. Pretty awesome. They get really excited about that. These are architectural tours. These are people that want to see stuff. What I can only call our stairway to nowhere, that stairway that's been here since 1923 is something that's really exciting for them. So we get to welcome them in. They come, they take pictures out front, and they actually come through. And that's another great way for us to be able to talk to community members, and oftentimes people from outside of our community that are just now learning about Uptown. Last thing I'll talk about, we had the privilege of hosting Governor Pritzker for the Illinois Grocery Initiative press release. We were really proud of this, and actually it goes back probably about 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, Grant. You and I had the chance to sit down, and we were asked to come and talk to the people when they were first building that initiative. So we're trying to get ourselves even more ingrained in not just the community, but also the greater food community, into the politics and policies that help to impact and hopefully positively impact the food community. But we got to sit down and talk to them, and they initially just talked to us about, because they wanted us to talk about co-ops. We're pretty good at that. The nice part was we were also able to talk about local, and about healthy, and about what care for community means when it's even outside of a co-op space. So when they moved on to the next level of that grocery initiative, we got a call from Illinois State Rep Mary Beth Canty, we got a call from Han Wynn, and we got a call from the governor's office asking us if there's any way that they could come and do it in Chicago Market. They wanted to do it in Chicago Market. They could find space other places, but they knew two things. One, that we had a deep, deep-seated care for community built into what we do, and two, that Chicago Market, this community co-op that we're building, our co-op that we are all building together, is an important piece for this community. And so we're really honored to be a part of that. So, I talked about it at the start, and we'll come back to some of the money pieces. I'm going to invite Kate to come up here in just a second. But all of these events, all of this progress, all of this, in short, it's been a busy year. It's been a productive year. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we've done. I'm very, very proud of where we are today, and I can't wait for where we're going. But I'll invite Kate to come up and talk to you a little bit more about the financial pieces of things. Thanks so much.
Hello, everybody. As Matthew said, my name is Kate. I am the treasurer. I joined the co-op in 2019 and then joined the board in 2020. So I'm going into my 5th year on the board. And I get to talk about the fun part, which is the money part. So starting with income. Just to give you a quick summary of where everything stands, we continue to have steady income from parking, which has allowed us to help cover our sort of ongoing regular operating expenses. And over the past year, outside of those operating expenses, our main expenditures have really been with Store Masters. You'll probably hear a lot more about that from Dan in a little bit. But they've been working hard this year to finalize the build-out of the space, including equipment, programs, finishes, choosing colors and materials, things like that. We are bidding out contractors and subcontractors, and we have submitted permits, as Matthew said, and are in permit review right now as well. Last year, as Matthew said, we closed our shared capital loan, which puts us on the path to closing our primary lender loan, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. And this, as we've said, has taken considerably longer than anticipated. Dan will go into more detail about that in the annual report, which will be available after this meeting. But Chicago Market is a really unique project. We are the largest startup co-op in the country, and we have an unusual capital stack, but we're moving towards close, and we're excited to see that happen. As you can see, at the end of June, we had $378,000 on cash on hand. $250,000 of that, which was the reserve required for the SBA loan. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And as we continue towards open, this number is rapidly reducing. So that's why we're looking to close those loans. But we are very closely monitoring our cash flow and budget in these last months before we actually before we close our primary loan. Now I will talk about our uses. For those of you that have been around for a while, this probably won't look all that different to you, but our numbers have been tweaked and adjusted as we've moved along and finalized the equipment and the build out of our store. One thing I'd like to call attention to is the large yellow slice of the pie there, which is our overrun budget. So we have an overrun budget of 9.4%. And this is purposefully at the high end of the recommendation for overrun. Every project has unforeseen expenses, every project has surprises, so we have kept this high to make sure that we are in a good position should we have to pivot and adjust while construction is ongoing. Now moving on to sources again. This will probably look very familiar to most of you, but I'll still go through the breakdown of all of our funding. So funding is broken down into three main categories. First is ownership. That is all of us. That comes with owner shares, owner loans, preferred shares. Each owner in this room has a voice and a stake in this business and the things that are happening every day. Second is the grant, which you may hear us talk about as CRP or TIF grant, and this is the money that we will receive as a part of the Chicago Recovery Program. As we are in a well-funded TIF district here in Uptown, our CRP award was actually adjusted from a traditional grant to be funded by TIF. So a little bit different than what other people received as a Chicago Recovery Grant. Through this fund, these TIF funds, $5.8 million will be received as a reimbursement once we open the store. So how do we get to that reimbursement? We will use a traditional bank financing to bridge to this reimbursement. This is where shared capital, as Matthew mentioned before, comes in, and another cooperative bank as well. They will provide us which is typically called a bridge loan, which is a short-term loan that will allow us to get access to funds so we can start to build up the store and then get paid back by the city as soon as the store opens through those TIF funds. The last piece of the sources is a more traditional loan, a long-term bank loan, and that is where our bank has chosen an SBA or Small Business Administration-backed loan. And without getting into details of that, that's where that reserve of $250,000 is put into place as an SBA-backed loan. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the cash on hand, that's where that $250 comes into play. One piece of very great news over this last year is that we went in front of City Council this year with the Department of Planning and Development to ask for an adjustment in our TIF payments. Previously, we were going to be getting the money in 2 tranches with a year between payments, and we were actually approved to get a payout in 1 tranche as soon as the close of construction on the project. And that will just save us over $100,000 in interest. So this was very good news for this year, and we're really happy to work with City Council to make sure that that happened. And that's all I have for the money part. So now I will hand it off, I believe, to Dana, who is up next.
Hello, fellow cooperators. My name is Dana McKinney, and I like to say my primary role is I'm owner 872, because the owners are at the top of the food chain in a co-op. But I also am on the board of directors and have been elected by the board to serve as a vice president on the board. As a co-op, it is our right and responsibility as owners to elect from our ownership directors to provide strategic direction and guidance to our organization. So every year we conduct information sessions that share what it means to be a member of the board and what that all takes, what the board does, what skills typically are making people great board directors, time commitments involved, and what it means to be a working board, which we are and will be until we are fiscally financed and making profit. So what that means versus advisory board or governing board, which is what we're going to be once we get to that point of financial stability. As Matthew had mentioned, all of our board are complete volunteers, most with full-time day jobs, so it is quite a bit of things to take on. It's not an easy task, which is why I typically try and meet with each individual candidate to say, this is what you're getting into. Are you ready for it? But we do have a lot of things we have to be thankful for with all the owners that have served on our board over the years, and we'll take a look at who all those folks are. This year, we have 4 seats that are up for election in this particular board director election. There are currently 10 directors on our board right now with 1 open seat. We were so close to the election, we did not appoint, we went ahead and left it as an open seat. The directors on our board are elected to 3-year terms. So what I want to do first is take a look a little bit at the voting mechanics and what that all entails, and then we'll talk about who these people are that have graciously volunteered to run for the board. So for those of you who have been here before, this is a refresher for you. For those of you who might have joined the co-op in the last year, this is your introduction in how the voting process works. We actually use Election Runner, which is an online voting platform that allows us to track the votes and get statistics around how many owners have voted without knowing the results of their vote. And that confidentiality is something that we take very seriously. Our election steward is Malcolm Har. He's actually owner number 14, so you know how long he's been with us. And he set up the voting platform for our use, and we'll track the number of votes coming in and let the board know this percent of owners have already voted. The election is certified, and so there's a certification process done by another one of our owners, Becky Reamer. She's owner 1217, and she actually does data analysis as her full-time job. So once the votes are all tallied, Becky conducts an audit to make sure that the votes are accurate. Each owner of record, some of you might be a couple or a family that are in an ownership of our co-op together, but every single ownership has one specific owner of record. That's the primary voting owner per household. And they will receive an email after this meeting with a link to vote, and it'll use your unique owner number. Owners have to have joined the co-op by noon yesterday, because that's when we pulled the database draw in order for people to vote. So as long as they were an owner by noon yesterday, they're in our voting system today. The link in the email will be to the voting platform Election Runner. It'll take you directly to our election platform. There will be a voter identifier. It's kind of a number that's auto-assigned by Election Runner, the system, and a voting key, which is basically your password to get in, and that is your owner number, which will be in the email, because a lot of people are like, I don't know my owner number. So you'll see it in your email. And as I mentioned, we have 4 open board seats, but we actually have 6 candidates running for the board. Super excited. We have had some years in the past where we've had more open seats than we've had candidates. So we have a contested election this year. Voting will open today after this meeting, and it's approximately 4 p.m. An email will go out, and the polls will close next Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So 1 week to vote. So I'm going to encourage everybody to please don't delay. When you get that email, open it, go into the platform, make sure you vote for your representation on the board. If you don't receive an email with the ballot information, it probably means you need to update your email with us. So please get in touch with us. I have board@chicagomarket.coop as a great way to just get ahead of us right away and let us know so we can troubleshoot with you, and we'll get Malcolm on that to make sure that you get an email provided to you with your voting information. We will send a reminder usually about halfway through the voting period, so midweek next week. But again, the sooner you vote and can get it out of the way, the better. Now you may wonder, how do we get candidates to come forward and run for the board? Well, we ask. We go in our newsletters and various places where we meet and interact with owners and say, hey, why are you an owner? What draws you to all of this? Would you be interested in running for the board at some point in time? And I do host those info sessions in order, again, for everyone to know what they're getting into. And then I do meet individually one-on-one with each candidate to say, here's what it's all about, here's what I can tell you about what we're doing, why do you want to do this, do you have the time and the bandwidth, what are your concerns about it, or what are your questions, and really make sure I have that one-on-one time with each person. So I am the nominating committee. I present that slate of candidates to the board for approval. I would love to have any other owners that want to be part of an actual committee rather than it being a committee of one. Join me in that. So if you're interested in that, please don't hesitate to come see me. And if you're interested in running for the board next year, please don't hesitate to also let me know that too. It never too early to plan for our co-op's future. So I can be reached at Dana M at chicagomarket.coop. So feel free to reach out to me personally if you'd like to. So later today, look for that email. The voting link is in there, and this is how our democratically run and cooperatively owned grocery store runs its business, through electing our directors from our ownership. And you are an owner of this business, and this is how we run our business. Now, what I'd like to do next is meet the brave souls who, after me telling them all the things that we have to do as a board, have said, yeah, I'm game, I'll do that. So here are our 2024 board candidates. We actually have 3 incumbents running for the board this year. There are current board members whose seats are up for re-election, and we have 3 new owners who are interested in serving. So a very exciting mix. I will introduce each one kind of in the order that you see from left to right on the slide, and ask them to come up to the microphone and say a few words about why they're running and why they would benefit the board. All of our owners did already get an email with their candidate statements. So if you didn't see that email, you can go to our website and just look at news, our little news link, and all of their pictures and candidate statements, all the questions that they all answer the same questions, are out there for you to read. So when you get your email today, if you're like, but I don't know who I want to vote for, go read their candidate statements, and that'll help you make a decision. But let's go ahead and meet our candidates for the board. We have first up, Chris Burns. He is owner 668, and he has served 1 term on our board. He was actually our secretary for the first year on his board. So, Chris, would you like to come introduce yourself?
I don't know that I need applause. So I don't have a ton to say. I think that the important thing for me to communicate is my philosophy on being a member of this board. Our vision to create jobs, our vision to support farmers, our vision to improve the food shed mean absolutely nothing if we don't open the doors to this store. You have my unwavering commitment that I will exercise the fiduciary responsibilities and commitment to make sure that your dollars, the dollars that are coming to us through the TIF grants, are being spent in the right way, and that we're moving the project forward. I've been here 3 years on the board, super proud of everything that we've accomplished, but there's a lot more that we need to do. And so I would appreciate your support to see the mission through. Thanks very much.
Next we have one of our newest owners, and actually clocking in at owner 2024. We're at 2028. So, very, very new owner is Clayton Lyons. He is passionate about bringing health and sustainable food to our community and bringing his expertise in finance and investing to our board. So Clayton, would you please come introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dana. Hello, everyone. I'm Clayton, relatively new to the Chicago market, but once I found out about it, I knew it was a community I needed to be involved with. So I just want to say I will be a very hardworking board member, very eager to learn, and bring a background in finance and investing. So our goal is to grow this market and see profits rise, markets rise. So I have some experience in that. I also run a small little supper club here in Chicago, so love to cook, and I know that this will be a great way for me to hopefully benefit that and improve. But I am here to serve all the owners, and hopefully it's a community that I will be a part of for a long time. Thank you.
And next up we have Grant Kessler. Grant has served on the board actually since the very beginning. He is owner number 3. And he's provided the board of the project with guidance and structure it's needed as our board president for his first 2 terms. You might actually know him best as the brains behind social media and marketing and any other number of ways he helps the co-op. He and I were here setting up all of this stuff yesterday, getting things ready, and he secured all of our vendors that we have here today. So, Grant, will you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dana. Right, so when you get that email after this meeting, that comes more or less from me, on behalf of your co-op. So I'm Grant Kessler, and I've been with the co-op since, as I say, day 2. So I saw a notice about it in the early years, and came to community meetings, and got involved, volunteered, led our steering committee, and then for many years was the president of the board, and super excited to be doing that work. I was attracted to the co-op for food reasons. Loved the local food aspect, wanted that kind of food in my neighborhood. Couldn't wait to be able to buy that stuff in a grocery store, big farmer's market shopper. So I was drawn in for all those reasons, but quickly learned that it's so much more than that. What we're building as a co-op is bigger than that. And so I came for the food, I stay for the community, and that is exactly why I want to stay on the board, serving the community to get the doors open on this thing. So I welcome your support, and thank you for all your past support, and I'm glad to be running again. Thanks.
All right, and another new owner, joining just ahead of Clayton by a smidge, owner 2400, is Jack Cruikshank. And he actually volunteers with Chicago Fair Trade. So he's got a connection to our neighbor to the north and is excited to get more involved with our project, bringing his skills around sustainability, equity, and systems thinking to our efforts. So let's meet Jack.
Hello, good afternoon. Yeah, as Dana mentioned, I'm involved with Chicago Fair Trade a little bit. I actually met Dan at the Global Fest event that they had, their fundraiser, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. As someone who grew up in central Illinois, I saw us having the best soil in the world, right? And we're just using it for corn and beans all the time, right? So I understand that this market itself won't necessarily fix all those problems, right? But there are real issues here that if we can use local produce and I can brand it, I can get it in my neighborhood, that's amazing. So just here, and I'm excited to be part of this. I appreciate the community aspect here.
Next candidate is John Law. He served on the board for 1 term and is currently the board's main contact with Storemasters. And I know that Kate had mentioned that name, so I just want to clarify. That's our design build firm that is working towards constructing our store. So he joins in all of Dan's meetings with them, and we'll actually get to hear a little bit more from John later in the sustainability conversation. But John, will you please mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Hello everyone, John Law. This is where I ran for re-election after my first term here on the board. Professionally, my background is in architecture, urban design, and sustainability. So I'm really passionate about not only what this can do for our food system, regionally, thank you, but also the impact that the market can have on the neighborhood of Uptown itself and the hub that we can become for this community. As you heard, a lot of my interest so far and work on the board so far has been interfacing with Storemasters and helping us to get our permits submitted and produced, as well as some of the lovely design materials you see back here, using some of my design chops and previous work there to help inform that work. So again, like others you heard, I am really excited about the work that we are. We're getting, we're closer than ever, and I would love to continue to serve you and help see this through and get our doors open in the coming year.
And last but not least, we have Maribel, owner 2259. So she's been an owner since 2022 and would like to bring her background in computer science and technology, as well as her passion for improving food accessibility, to the board should she be elected by her fellow owners. So Maribel, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Yeah, just like basically everyone here, I'm guessing I really love food. I grew up in a small yet big city, El Paso, Texas, so I'm a transplant here. Grew up with a very close culture to food, just like many others, like generational, learning from your parents, grandparents, and that really brought me together with a lot of people in college. I was able to commune with people that I would have never talked to before through food, so I've always been really passionate about it, and I love how it brings people together. And one new layer that I've just been uncovering in recent times for myself is like the interaction between food and my body and how it makes me feel, as well as sustainability and fair trade and how important all those things are, not just taking for granted like this economy that we live in and our roles in it. I would really like to become a more engaged member of my community. So that's what led me here. Just really want to connect my passion to action, and contribute in any way that I can. So that's me.
So I just have a huge thanks to all of our candidates for your interest and your willingness in running for the board of directors and for just all the passion you bring. It's been great to talk to individuals and really learn what they're interested in with this community. So 4 of the 6 candidates will be elected by our owners to serve on the board when voting closes next Sunday night. And for the 2 that don't get elected, we still have plenty of things for you to do and ways that you can lean in. And while we're on the topic of board members and volunteering their time, I just want to give a huge thanks to all of the owners who have served on our board over the past 10 years. If you served on the board and your name is on the slide, please stand up so we can just give a round of applause to anyone who has been a board member over the time. So thank you to all of our volunteers. And they're not the only volunteers, they're the ones with the big jobs, but they're not the only volunteers. Some of our other folks that make the co-op work are folks that you can kind of see on this list of things that we have done. I know Matthew already spoke a lot about some of the activities that we have done in our community, and there's plenty of behind-the-scenes work that is happening all the time that people don't even see happening. And so this year we wanted to do something a little bit different. We want to call out attention to 2 specific teams of volunteers. The first one, most of you have no clue who they are. I was actually looking at these names and going, I've been on the board for 7 years, do I actually know these people? They are our owner onboarding team. They are the folks that when you join online, they do all of the administrative work and the behind the scenes to make sure you get your receipt, you get your emails, you get your owner number, that we get you in our database. They do all of that stuff. So we would not be able to manage the number of volunteers or the number of owners that we have without Mike, Jacob, Charlotte, and Roy. We don't say it often enough, so thank you for your behind the scenes work. And then I know that Matthew also mentioned our Uptown's Farmers Market, but we have 28 weeks of a farmers market. For 28 weeks, we have people on our tabling team that provide us with weekly coverage that drive the community engagement. Our owner recruitment is really high at the farmers market because people see what we're offering there and they want that here. So we get a lot of owners out of that. So I want to say thank you to all of the volunteers that help Chicago Market talk about what we're doing for 28 weeks in a row. And specific shout outs to our team that are there almost every week. And that's Danny, Dave, Barb, and Jess. And I know that Jess and Barb are here because they volunteered to help already. And they're in the back. So thank you to both of you and the rest of our tablers at the farmers market. And so, how can you help? There's a lot more people in this room than I might have mentioned in some of those things. So if you're interested in volunteering now or in the future, please reach out to volunteer@chicagomarket.coop. I want to call out some specific things that we are in need of. And so they're kind of in our little badge on the right-hand side there. We are always in need of social media and marketing support. Grant's the one kind of running around taking pictures and stuff to make sure that we have social media content for after this. But includes helping Grant with posts on our social media channel, working to plan our groundbreaking, which we're hoping is coming up in the next couple of months. Also, communications to owners as we move through construction, helping with the monthly newsletter. That's the sort of thing. So if you're interested and have skills in that area, please see Grant after the meeting. You heard Matthew mention about HR stuff that needs to get done, and Sonia and I are holding down the current HR pre-opening task force, and we are really getting ready to do a lot of things. We've got job descriptions, job postings, interview guides, benefit packages, all of that kind of stuff that we need to pull together, anything that would involve hiring a staff of people for our store. So if you have any expertise in that areas, please see me after the meeting or send me an email. We still need people to table at the Uptown Farmers Market, of course, as well. Would love to have more people doing that. Those are all really specific asks, but what's kind of below that are some more ambiguous asks, things that might need a little bit more thought or strategy consideration. We are looking for someone to help with volunteer coordination. People raise their hand, say, I want to be a volunteer. We do sign-up sheets at the market or other places that we table, and they check off, I want to volunteer. And we need somebody to follow up with those people and just be like, hey, you said you wanted to volunteer. What kind of stuff do you like doing? And help that person find a place. There's so much that we could be doing related to placing volunteers and getting more owner engagement if we had somebody that could kind of lead the charge with that. We also relaunched in March an owner growth team, and that was me going to some co-op conference meetings and hearing everybody say, don't let your owner growth stagnate. And I was like, oh no, we've let our owner growth stagnate. You kind of heard Matthew mention that. So we launched a team in March. We started a team of really interested and invested volunteers, and it's totally stalled out, and I'll be completely transparent and honest and say that's because I can't handle leading that team and doing the HR stuff and board recruitment and development and all those types of things. So we've had offers from local restaurants to table in their space and see people maybe that we don't normally see. There's other events and things we could go out and do. We just don't have someone kind of leading the charge on that. So our financial statements indicate that we would be best to get 400 new owners before we open. So that's the number we're targeting between now and hopefully this time next year. It's doable once construction starts. Again, Matthew said we'll see a spike, but we really want that team to kind of take that ball and run with it. So there's a lot of interested volunteers, but we need somebody to kind of step forward and help them get direction. One of the things that does drive ownership are also events, so having somebody oversee event coordination and maybe go, hey, there's this, farmer's market that we're not at a table at, wonder if we could do that. Or, oh my gosh, it's Earth Day coming up, let's do something for Earth Day for all of our owners. Or let's have an owner movie night. There's a great movie that's like sustainability focused that we should all go see and then go to a bar and talk about it afterwards. There's all kinds of things we could do that are both for owner growth and owner engagement, but it involves somebody kind of taking the helm of events coordination. So those are some of the things that are a little bit more ambiguous, and then I have the one that, well, it wouldn't be an owner's meeting if I didn't get up on my soapbox a little bit probably. So here's my pitch to all of you. We need help in our parking lot. I don't know if any of you did park in the back and walk around the building before you came in, but our parking lot is not looking all that great lately. And we've had some serious issues with loitering and dumping and also some drug dealing and partaking. And we're working to get that under control, but to be perfectly honest and transparent, the board is overwhelmed with a lot of other things we're trying to do to keep the project moving forward. So until we can put up our construction fence, which we are working on doing earlier than planned, we do have unhoused neighbors, and we have other people who are just bringing in mattresses, grocery carts, camp chairs, furniture, beer coolers, trunks, other boxes of random things. I don't know if you wandered back that way, but there's an entire furniture inventory back there. That's all stuff that Matthew pulled off of the parking lot in the past couple of months. We have more grocery carts now than I think we'll need when we open the store, just because people keep dumping them in our parking lot. So we need help here. Cleaning up the trash on a regular basis is one thing, but we also need it to be part of a bigger process. We need people to say, hey, let's get a schedule of cleanups, or let's connect with other volunteers in the area that like doing this thing. There's an organization out there, if you have any connection to it, it's called Trash People. Just a group of fun people that for a social activity, they go pick up trash. Let me know if you have a contact there that could help us out with something like this. We need ideas, we need support, we just need people to be interested in this, I know, very fun and compelling activity of cleaning up our parking lot. But we're open to ideas and suggestions, anything that you might have thought of, anything that would help us take care of our building. This isn't something that only board members can do, and the ones that have been doing it are frankly kind of burnt out by having to come every couple of weeks and clean up a lot of big stuff out of that. So what are we missing? How can you help? What do we haven't thought of? How do we get more owners involved in this? If you have any ideas around that, please email us volunteer@chicagomarket.coop. We would love your help. So with that, I will pass it over to another great steward of our building and another person with a million things on his plate, our general manager, Dan Arnett.
I'll remember to keep the microphone close this time. Last time I had one here, nobody could hear me. So if you have a problem hearing, let me know and I'll drift back. So I'm going to keep my remarks pretty brief today. And I know somebody's probably laughing at me. When I was in school, my first grade teacher sent a note home, and she had a word for me. She said, "Your son is the talkingest child I've ever met during my engagement with public schools." So I don't know. But I think I can keep it pretty reasonable. Okay, let's get the brief. Like I said, I may pause occasionally because we have tremendous access to public transit. You may know that. It's always, I like the sound of it. I can hear people coming in the shop. So we've got the first little tranche of commentary has to do with construction. So, that was a little feedback. First, we heard a little bit about the permits. Now, the good news is a majority of the permits are already approved. So it's not like we're waiting on everything in the future. We just have some permits that are required for us to actually start. But we've made significant progress. Before, when we thought we had a lot of progress, we never had any of that in hand. So it was always something that we expected that to come a little faster, but some of the delays with our utilities prevented us from really moving forward with other things because the electrical and gas components are so integrated with other pieces of the project. You can see here, plan for groundbreaking in motion. As long as we can close the financing on out, get the permits issued, we'll have that. We'll get a date out to you hopefully sooner than later. I know it's something we've been waiting on since 2013, but it's a time that's almost here. Boy, this is like maybe I've got a, it's like the tech doesn't like me. That's okay. Okay, I will do that. Is this better? I told you I'm not really great with the mic generally. Okay, so groundbreaking, that'll be an exciting time, and I think for all the delays and everything, once we're moving, like we talked about with owner growth and everything else, we can really start to dig into some of the things that attracted each of you to the project in the first place. Also, once that happens, you're looking at 9 to 12 months, not just for construction, but that also includes our fitting up of the store inside, filling up the inventory, merchandising, setting up all of our workspaces, getting staff trained. So that's inclusive. So once we're on that track, we get open within 9 to 12. There are some people who think it'll be on the shorter end, but I will caution anybody that gets too optimistic about it being 9 versus 12, that we do have some excavation. Office of Underground Coordination is a little bit of an X factor, could delay it because the ground, turns out in Chicago, it freezes really hard, and it makes it very difficult to deal with. So our construction team will account for that as best they can with the sequencing and the phasing of the different build-out aspects that we deal with. But we may not be able to mitigate that completely, and it may push us towards the longer end of that draw. We'll see. You notice on there, there's a nice big thing that says, we have a store design to meet our co-op's stated values. And that's really important. Anytime we talk about all these other details, everything's been filtered through the lens of those values that you have. You may remember, you can talk about sustainability, you can talk about relationships, ownership, accountability, justice, and joy. All 6 of those things are key ingredients in everything we do. They're not going to be countermanded or undermined at any point in the project. And that's really important. You don't always hit a home run with everything. We make sure that we're doing our best to express those as we build the design and operating plans that flow from them and inform that design. It's really important. And it also is part of why we're the largest startup food co-op in the history of this country. In terms of sales volume, I'll give you some perspective. We project out to be about a similar sales volume to the 3 co-ops that are open in our immediate region. That's pretty substantial. They're not all small projects or anything like that. This is really atypical. And there's only one project I can remember in the last 25 years that had a scale approaching this one, but we should break their record. They set the record about, I guess it was about 17 years ago. That's important not just for bragging rights. We said, well, we're the biggest co-op, and that sounds really great. But what's important about it is all the things that we just talked about in those values can be expressed more powerfully and more meaningfully due to scale. Now, if we have these farmers that Matthew's talking about that say, this is going to be the difference in us hanging on and continuing farming, if you can give them $500 business a month or $2,000 a month, it's a big difference to them. So the scale is important. It's not just bragging rights. It's not we just want it for its own sake. That's how we translate your values in the best way. Anyway, expect some things to happen soon. You'll start to see fencing go up. That'll be one change that'll be immediate. You'll see paper in the windows. That means the parking lot. Eventually, hear about the great income we have, but that's got to wind down as well. And then once that's going, we really won't have a lot of access to the building for people early on. There's just too many liability issues. But as we get closer, hopefully we can break out some hard hats, and if you want to sign up, we'll try to get some people in to tour because it is your store. So if you really want to get excited that way, we can do that. Building our network. This is really important too. I mean, two of the things you voted on in your bylaws, cooperation with co-ops and concern for the community. Those principles are easy to activate as a standalone small startup business. But when we combine our efforts with other like-minded organizations, we can really have impact. Even while we're not open and doing business, we've still been able to influence things either on policy level, on just the way that some other people are organizing and developing in the community. And that's really important. So there's a bunch of organizations, and one we heard about, Chicago Fair Trade, we're a business member. I know because they finally put up our logo with the others. It's the first time I was like, where are we at? They fixed it very quickly, but we love Chicago Fair Trade. Of course, as the chairman of Fair Trade America, I'm partial to anything fair trade. But I think it's really a critical thing, and a lot of people around the country are watching this because I think there's an opportunity for us to tell the fair trade story in a way that we haven't seen in our retail environment, thanks to having that great resource close by, and I think we'll synergize really well. Other organizations, you see acronyms. We love acronyms and things like that. So NCBA is National Co-op Business Association. They came around, I think it was 1915. I could be wrong, but I think it was 1915 that they were formally organized as the apex body of representing cooperatives, both in terms of just general awareness and on policy levels. They're located in DC for the United States. They also have quite a bit of work overseas through the Cooperative League of the USA, which was their original name. And they funnel a lot of USAID money to cooperative developments and fair trade developments. And it's really important for us to link with them. I'm going to be out in DC in a week and a half, doing some work with the Senate and the House of Representatives also on some of these issues, in concert with a couple of people that I work with at NCBA. But that's an important connection, and it's unusual for a startup to actually have that connection this early, but we want to be in the conversation so that we can advocate for our owners and our values in the best way. You can see INFRA. It's really important. I know it's another acronym, but that's Independent Natural Foods Retail Association. Now, technically, that's doing business as. The A is really a C. It's cooperative. They just changed it because INFRA doesn't really work and I didn't know what it was. So INFRA is much easier to deal with in trades. This is a collection of, I think we have 800 and some odd stores in all 50 states now. It represents close to $3 billion in turnover. So it's a kind of a confederation of businesses. We're all independent, but just like you're an owner of the co-op, Chicago Market is an owner of INFRA, which is really cool. So it's another co-op that we're connected with. That's going to enable pricing that we could not possibly get on our own. We're actually able to qualify for the highest tier of pricing. That immediately changes margins by a couple of points for us. So it's a big deal. That's not to mention all the professional support they have, the peer networking, etc. But that was a critical move. We made it earlier than normal. We joined probably 18 months ago. But our board really saw the value in it and we went for it. And it's been really helpful even in getting the project to move along faster. They've been able to help us in a lot of ways. That connection is going to be very significant, even like our friends at Prairie Co-op in Lombard. They're also INFRA members. There's several others we can mention. Rainbow Worker Co-op out in San Francisco, which is the second largest cooperative food store in the U.S. There's a lot of us involved. The Rumble. I'll try to wait.
Customers showing up. Customers showing up.
I know. I love the sound. I can just hear the sales rolling in. It's really great. Actually, it's just Chicago has one of my favorite transit systems in the whole U.S. I like it much better than what I have on travel. Anyway, Frontier is another one that we'll be dealing with. That's an urban spice company out of Norway, Iowa. And we can join as a retail member and again have equity stock. Very important though, because some of this work we're doing with them already is helping cultivate new fair trade markets. We're looking at places like Turkey that really don't have representation. We're going to try to pull some of those things in. Even though we're not open, we do have some influence, and they're really ready to support us here. We're still going to work with a lot of local urban spice people as well. It's not an either or. I think we'll have the best and most affordable access to urban spice in this whole city. But it's also a way where we can have that impact we talked about. So anyway, that's just some examples. There's so many more. I'm going to miss people, and they'll see a recording and say you didn't mention this, but there's quite a few. Even like everyone you see here has a connection with us. You'll see their products, you'll see Observance, Collective Resource. Oh, well, but guess what? They're a co-op. Well, guess who we want to have working with us on composting? Surprise. I mean, it's just, this is the way it is. We've got a worker co-op making it on. Guess who's one of our best spirits? So it's very important to us to have these connections with all these folks here and the many dozens outside of here. That's why we've had, I lost count. It's over 100, but I think it's more than that. I think it may be closer to 200. I've been out not just on the farms or factories, whether it's places like Now that makes supplements close by, or Spence Farm, or Janie's Mill, or Publican, or it's Abundant Pastures. I even went to Tony's Chocolate in Amsterdam and Heinrich's out in Germany that's going to be working with us on that divine chocolate that you have there. You know, whenever I'm out doing other work, I just go ahead and make the effort. Even though there's a tea co-op in Kenya outside of Nairobi, really nice. There's a lot of people that we're working with here, regionally, locally, and even globally, and we're going to have a supply chain that suits your needs. So why do we do that? In order to move from incremental value, which is what normally happens with these natural food stores, we try to do better there. We want to say, how can we have a transformative impact? How can we show a way that if other people see it as successful here, if they adopt it, it makes a real dent in things. It makes a difference to all those things we talked about and the values. So we had purchasing values. You made them, right? You know what they are. These products need to be delicious, pretty important. If it's not good, no one can say, well, I've just got to do it for the sake of somebody. They don't want junk. You want it to be delicious. You want it to be transparent. You want it to be sustainable, right? You want it to be local. You want it to be socially responsible. And you want it to be yours, because all those values could be applied in a lot of different ways, but this is this community right here in Uptown. And we want to say, what is this community's values? How do we evoke that in the best way? And take those other 5 Percy values and push it through the lens of our own community through what they've said and what you'll continue to say as you're engaged with your co-op. So it's pretty important. Those Percy values to me are very important. That's why I know them. I think about them all the time. And that's why I'm running around to these farms, which some have been lost out in cornfields. I don't know, there's times I don't know where I'm at. That farmers come rescue me. I'm like, I can't find you. I don't know. The maps don't work in this, where you're at. It's nuts. But anyway, the network is very important, and it wouldn't happen if we just went through normal distribution channels, if we did the way retail is done. We're having to come up with new ways to do it. We're working with people so that farmers are changing what they're doing in response to what we're planning to do. That's what it's going to take for us to make something transformative. We can't just say, well, we'll do our best with what's already there. I really believe that this is important. And of course, there's a little bit about leadership, just because you're probably sick of me. You want to have other people, other voices up here to represent operations, which would be great. And it would be great for me, because it's a lot when it's like, push whatever number for what department. Oh, that's you. Well, there you go. It's a lot. And it's pretty much, it would be an impossible thing to open a store. But we do have, of course, Dana McKinney, who you just saw, doing a great job. Sonia Lewis, I don't know if Sonia made it in today, I guess not. But we have 2 really skilled HR personalities on our board that have been super helpful. We're getting into these things where you look at handbooks, policies, protocols, materials, just making sure that we're ready day one to equip people to be attracted to this as a place of employment, and to be able to hit the ground running and do a great job, and hopefully have a great experience so we retain them. What we don't want to do is be an employer and say, boy, how can I escape? Where's the exit? I've got to find a new job. We want, there'll be a lot of people that will learn skills and they'll go on, that's fine. But we want that to be a conscious choice, not a running away from, but wow, I grew so much here, I now have other opportunities. And of course, benefits broker and HRIS and all this, we really have to get all this foundational stuff fixed up now that we're closer. If we'd done that years ago, it would be kind of a waste. So we've waited until we have line of sight on the target, so to speak. Love the rumble. It gets me every time. Well, soon I feel like I just took off like a spaceship. Anyway, that gives you a little bit of insight into the work that's going on. It's really about getting closure with the bank, getting these permits across so we can go ahead and build a store that we've visioned out in the manner I said, and then getting the staff and getting that product set up so that you have day one, a great shopping experience that's, there's no offense to anyone out there, but what we're planning to offer in many ways will be unique in the market. And I think that's important because you're opening your store for a reason, and if you really meant those purchasing values and those principles in your bylaws and the values that you've espoused, then that's what it's going to take for us to really meet them, as opposed to saying, boy, I hope we did just the bare minimum so the general manager retains his job. I don't want to do that. I want to say, how can we really grab this thing and run with it? So anyway, hopefully that's a little helpful to you, but I want to keep it, I hope it was a little brief anyway. And now we'll move to the next one. I don't even remember who it is. So.
So now we've got our special topic. So Dan, you're coming back up because Dan and John are going to talk a little bit about sustainability.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, yes, please. So as you heard, I'm a board member running for re-election, but I also come up here now and wearing a different hat. For me, sustainability is a very personal issue, and a couple of years ago, mid-COVID coincidentally, I decided I haven't spent enough time or money yet on education, so I decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in sustainability. So the culmination of that, I had to do a final project, a capstone consulting effort, and I was lucky and fortunate enough to work with Chicago Market on that project, and I'm here now to share a few of those recommendations from the sustainability effort, and these are ideas that we hope to implement in our store very soon. I by no means want to take credit for all this work. I worked very closely with Dan and board members and some stakeholders on this. Dan, as you can tell, is very well versed in sustainability and especially how that applies to the food system and operations of a store. So a lot of these things he knew already, but this effort was also to sort of quantify some of that, provide some research and tools to help implement some of these initiatives. So why should Chicago Market care about sustainability in the first place? Well, globally, over 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions come from the food system, from production, from transportation, consumption, all that. It's a massive problem in this current climate challenge that we face. Obviously, we're not going to fix that ourselves, but we can be the change that we want to see in the system. We can show how this can be done right. We can source from producers that are doing it right, and we can start to move the needle in how the food system operates and produces a more sustainable food network. But more importantly, we care about sustainability because you care about sustainability. As you've heard repeatedly, our values come from you. This is not the board telling us what we care about. We've heard from day one that sustainability and access to local healthy food is paramount to the success and the purpose for this market. And so that is the most important reason why we care about this. Additionally, though, a sustainability plan is going to help us be more resilient. It's going to help us reduce risk in our operations and ensuring that we have access to food in the region. It's also going to help us potentially lower costs in the long run. So many benefits to doing a plan through our organization. Working with our stakeholder team and hearing from you all, we developed 4 goals for the sustainability approach. Thinking about in-store efficiency, really becoming a leader in how we operate and reduce waste in the store, lower and increase our efficiency. Working with our supply chain to support farmers that are doing regenerative agriculture, to source products that are good for people and planet. To also support social sustainability. We as a cooperative care as much about the planet and its welfare as we do about our people. So we need to make sure that our society, our neighborhood, the people in it also are well supported and resourced. And finally, we want to ensure that we have or identify a third-party verification system or certification to back that up. Because we can say we're sustainable all we want. We can do that, sort of stand up here and say we're doing all the green things, but until you have that third-party verification that goes through the process of validating that, it's only words. So the recommendations that were developed in this plan very much mirror those recommendations. I'll go through these a little bit in high-level detail, but I want to save some time to talk with Dan as well. I'll just touch very briefly on the third-party validation system. We looked at options like LEED, which is a building certification system. We looked at various other options, but in the end we decided that pursuing B Corp certification, we've all seen B Corp on products that we use, we decided it's really it's sort of the gold standard for operational sustainability. It works very well with cooperatives. There's a lot of shared value there. And we think we'll be very successful in pursuing B Corp certification in our current stance. The only catch there is you have to be operational for 1 year before you can complete certification, but we will start that process once our doors are open to go through the effort of validating our governance. It goes into that, it goes into operations, it goes into worker support, many factors there. But I want to jump into these sort of these are sort of broken into 3 topics that I mentioned. Focus area 1 is really about minimizing in-store resources. So recommendation 1 is, as you can see in the lower left here, in most grocery stores, 30% of the fresh food is wasted, goes to waste. We want to get that closer to 0. So our goal will be to eliminate 100% of food waste in store. That can be done a lot of different ways. It's about stocking appropriately. It's about operations. It's about not rotating your produce that Dan can talk about. Ensuring that we upcycle our food as produce gets close to the end of its shelf life. We can upcycle that into prepared food. And then sort of as a catch, as the sort of fail-safe, we can look at composting. We have our great partners in Collective Resource. We want to make sure that food, at least if it's not used as it should be, as nutrition, it at least gets composted and can be serviced in other ways. Additionally, we want to think about operational solid waste. Again, you think about going to the grocery store, you see a lot of packages, a lot of containers. I think we and Dan have some great ideas about reusable containers, about lowering the amount of plastic and packaging we have in store. Additionally, grocery stores are massive consumers of energy. A lot of that, and water. A lot of that comes through refrigeration. So thinking carefully about how we approach our equipment, ensuring that we have a great maintenance plan to keep them running properly. That goes a long way to reduce the energy and water usage. We believe, on track. We're working with the City of Chicago to go through their sustainability ordinance. We are on track to reduce our water consumption by over 25% and get lower than the building code as well, so that's very exciting. Focus area 2 is about looking at supply chain sustainability. Hopefully, if you were here last year at the annual meeting, you heard Dan talk to Marty Travis, who is a person working with many regenerative agricultural farmers in the area. So there's been a lot of thought put into that. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go onto our website or to our YouTube channel and look at that interview that happened last year. So how we can source sustainable products, but also ensure tracking of those products, communicate to you where these products came from, the ingredients that they contain, and what various attributes they have. Are they gluten-free? Are they organic certified, etc. And finally, again, as a cooperative, we can no longer contain or limit sustainability to environmental sustainability. So how can we support our community? One way we can do that is be a hub of activity and inclusivity. Thinking about ways that we can hire people that are traditionally difficult to employ, people that are returning from incarceration, people that have had intermittent homelessness. Working with the jobs program in the area to support some of those folks would be one way to do that. But also opening our doors to welcome people in to educational resources. We'll have a great community room that Dan can talk about how we program that to give opportunities for people to learn about healthy food, how to cook, etc. We also can support our community by going hyper-local, supporting and really celebrating the great access to local products that we have here, many of which are here today, and celebrating those products in store. So in this report, obviously I can't go into all the detail today, but suffice it to say that interestingly, a lot of these recommendations are not going to be cost adders for us. They're actually going to save us costs operationally. Even the ones that require capital improvements up front, like the equipment, can be paid off in a very short period of time. So at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of benefit to be had here. But with that, I want to actually bring up Dan to talk a little bit about this. I don't have a ton of time here, but let's do a question or two. I know, right? Sorry, I know there's a couple ferns back here. Sorry. So let's start out, Dan. We talked a little bit about how generally grocery stores are pretty heavy consumers of resources and products. I'd love to hear in a bit more detail what your thoughts are and what you are planning to do in terms of reducing packaging waste and ideally food waste as well.
Okay, well, it's a tough one because there's no perfect solutions out there. That's the first thing I would say. So it's a thing where how can you do the best you can and maybe help move down the field over time. But first and foremost, when you're curating your set, you're going to have a lot of different, let's say it's packaged goods, a lot of options. And they have different packaging. Sometimes you have something that's a meal that's ready to go, you microwave it, and it's in a simple package. Okay, we can deal with that. Some of them, there's like a plastic bowl inside of a paper thing, and then it's got plastic all over it. So in our case, that would be a decision point where we go away from the one with more packaging. So we're looking to, through the curation of the set, produce packaging, and also to go out, especially with the people that are small and medium producers, to encourage them to change the packaging. Sometimes they don't realize there's a pathway. It just so happens I have enough connections which I can maybe help them. I've done this many times, and you can say, there are some options, and we would love to carry this, or we would love to expand our commitment to you, but here are the things that would help us to do that. And so you can, sometimes you can help foster that change, especially when you've got a group like Infrac. I find like-minded stores to do that. So that's one thing. You can help push on the supply side. There's other things we do, like that's one of the reasons we have such a commitment to bulk foods. That's why we went with the whole animal butcher shop, etc. So we're offering as many things that are package-free or low packaging as we can. Hopefully that supplants a lot of the things with packaging. But we won't have zero packaging. There's still going to be some packaging and things, but when there is, we want to say, is it minimized reasonably, and is it made from post-consumer material, or is it made with something that can compost? We have a compost enthusiast here. So we want to try to pick the things that aren't presenting persistent environmental toxins or whatnot where we can. So it's, in some cases you can really get down to something awesome. In some cases you say, well, it's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than the average out there, and it will make a difference. But if we really do this comprehensively, I think the impact overall, especially as you go through the sales volume you have, is substantial. In terms of just food waste, I think you articulated a lot of it really well. Some of it means breaking down the silos in departments. So produce, meat, deli prepared. All of our stuff that we prepare, I want to try to funnel it through our own departments. So we don't buy a case of avocados for the deli and then a couple of cases for produce. We just say, look, let's take the ones that they're great, but they're a little ugly. We're going to chop them up anyway. Let's go ahead and pull those out. And produce, we know the others are going to sell better. And so it's a little bit more work, but that improves the freshness too. If we're buying herbs and spices out of our own stock, we're turning over. So then when you come in, it's that much more accelerated. So you can say instead of it maybe turning over every 4 weeks, it may turn over every 2 weeks. And so that's one of the ways we do it, just by integrating. When you come to the end of the chain though, sometimes you've got to look at composting, or you've got to look at the soup kitchen up the road. You've got to look at how do we deal with shelters, because there are some people who are not going to be able to shop routinely here, but that doesn't mean we're not interested in feeding our whole community where we can. So it's better than letting it go to waste, but you've got to get it out to them before it's really like spoiled. But there's a whole bit of program. We could go on this for a long time, but I know we're pressed for time. That's a little bit of the crux of it. It just comes through everything from the source all the way through the disposal. We have to think intensely about each of those things and how we can impact them, whether it's through our work or it's through our influence. That's great.
One more quick one here. We'll pivot a little bit if that's all right. So much of sustainability is not just about what you buy and what you source and all that. It is obviously. A lot is also about how it permeates into the culture of the organization. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on how you hope to embed sustainability in the operations of the store, how you want to work with the staff that you hire on to ensure that they care as much about our values as you do and as we all do, and how that will affect the day-to-day operations to ensure that we're doing the best we can to reduce our resource consumption.
Dramatic pause. Okay, well this is an interesting one. There's two big pieces, I think, when you're managing a company like this. It's how you develop your culture and your structure. That's the biggest ways you're going to influence that. So if you're going to influence culture, I think of it like a sociologist kind of. We're thinking about science, symbol, artifact, shared story, different processes, tools, everything we've got around us. And so if we're thoughtful about how we're creating the environment, we can build whatever kind of thing we want, more or less, we move the needle. For me, that means looking at those principles, those values that you have, and saying those things should be present. It's kind of like fractal geometry. Like I said, I don't prep answers, so this is just me talking. I want to be able to see those values and principles if you zoom in on the smallest detail, or if you zoom out and look at the organization. So when we look at sustainability, that's clearly articulated as important. We've got concern for ecosystems as a principle. That's in the bylaws. We've got a value around sustainability. It's also one of the purchasing values. That means it's important. So that also means that everything we do should be considerate of that. So whether it's the things that help trigger that in people's mind, whether it's in the training and onboarding process, whether it's the recruitment process, that this is something people understand as part of our brand, it's what you do every day. Are you living it, or are you just saying it? So it's like, if you build the right structures, you build it in the job descriptions, you put expectations out there, and you talk about it. You bring staff through participatory management, you track it, you manage what you measure. So if we have internal measures, and we can say, okay, staff, what do you see and what do you want to do? And we get that ground up kind of activity. I think that's how you do it. You get ownership. But you've got to start with framing the culture, setting up the right structure, and then you've got to activate people through their own engagement, their own work, and giving them some power to do the things that you're asking them to do. That's how you do it. And that includes you. You're going to come up with ideas. It's your story. You're going to come in. I noticed this. I think the manager's doing a terrible job with this one, and I've got a solution. Well, okay. I'm not that sentimental. I want the best ideas. If you've got a great idea and we can implement it, rock and roll. That's an easy decision. Because for me, if it helps us advance the things that you've set as an expectation the board has, that'll make me look really smart. Of course I'm going to do it. But really, I'm really a sustainability-oriented guy anyway. That's why we want to do it anyway. But that's really how you do it. I don't think it's complicated, but it's not. Right?
All right, last one, really quick. Just a one sentence answer. We'll leave people hanging. What are you most excited about in terms of sustainability in the store? What one initiative are you really excited to get out there? You think it's going to be innovative or new?
Our local supply chain, 100%. That's it. I think it's going to be the most powerful, the most transformative, and there's already buzz about it in places, so I know it'll work. But working with all of our different producers, there's no question.
All right, thank you. I think it's time we'll move on. Appreciate it.
So up next are your questions, and I believe that Howie will kind of facilitate this. So I will pass the mic to him, and if you have any questions as owners, now is your chance to voice them.
Good afternoon, everybody. Any questions? No dumb questions, no bad questions. We'll try to answer questions, but also plenty of board members will be hanging out after. Please feel free to just reach out to any of us and ask questions afterwards as well. But let's get into it. See at least one raise.
That's the link.
All right, great. This is the link. So I can either relay it or if you want to come up.
I don't know my own numbers. Among the sustainability things we're talking about are local energy, packaging, etc. But nobody's mentioned the word organic. And I'm wondering, are you talking to organic farmers? And if so, what percentage of your suppliers do you think will be organic farmers?
We'll have Dan answer this one.
Great question.
This is one of my favorite questions. I'm a big supporter of organic agriculture. We're focused on regenerative agriculture primarily with a lot of our producers. So many of them are certified organic, some aren't, but their practices are things that I think are compatible with what organic meant before USDA got a hold of it anyway. Oh, sorry. This is more sustainable if you hear it. So what I was saying is most of the farmers in our supply chain are organic in practice or with certification. All of them are regenerative. We're not working with people who are outside of one of those qualities, or all of them. As far as the total store, I would say that the organics are probably going to be 50% or better ultimately. There's going to be quite a commitment there. I mean, there's no reason for us to ignore that market segment. I think it's really important. But there's things like Kilkus milk that we're going to have that we know is not certified organic, but it's got a lot of other great qualities. It's local and it gets a price point. Some people would look at, $8 a gallon milk and say, I can't do it. So we want to say we've got the option, but it's not going to be exclusive. I've run produce departments that were 100% organic in the past. But to deal with Illinois local farms, I I don't think that's the best approach, but abandoning the concerns behind it is also a bad approach. So regenerative, organic, sustainable practices, and that's one reason I'm on the farms. I want to see exactly what inputs they have, how they deal with the land, what their philosophy is. I sit at their table, eat lunch with their kids and their family. I want to see how the animals are treated, how the land is treated. But we'll make sure you have assurances, and I would say about 50% is right.
It is a great question. And one thing I want to add is the labeling thing can be very difficult, especially for smaller farms. Labeling can be a very difficult thing, especially for these smaller emerging farms in our region. It costs a lot of money to become organically certified, so to go through the USDA process and all that. So as Dan is saying, I think just know the relationship is almost as important as that labeling. Knowing how they operate and how they produce the food, and us being able to transmit that information to you through labeling through this in the store is, as for us, I think, as important as the label itself. We want you to have access to that option, that great quality food.
Thank you, Dan and John. Any additional questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Rocio. So one of the questions that I have is typically we see with traditional retailers, their margins are quite slim in most cases. How are we going to kind of compete against that? I know you guys had mentioned being able to work with different grant systems in order, or loans, to be able to get better margins. I guess competing versus some of the other retailers near here, how are we going to stand out but also continue to have lower margins or higher margins for the store?
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. This is always the core issue with any natural food store. First thing I would say is our main competing element is quality. Really in retail, I always say there's like three things you're competing on really: service, price, and quality. We're not going to win on price. That's just not going to happen. But we won't lose on it. We can win on quality. Some of the things we were just talking about, like the last question. So that's really the first place you start. But you don't want on price to be outrageous or anything like that. So there's a couple of things there. One, we're also going to have low margins. I hate to say, I mean, this is not a high margin industry in the first place. If you made 2 cents of every dollar back, you're going gangbusters. So it's not going to be overwhelming margins, but through good internal practices and labor practices and investments in infrastructure, we should be able to make that work. I've done it elsewhere, but it's still not going. We're not going to be making 3 and 4%. Yeah, that's no way. The other side of this is, like I said, we're not going to win on pricing, but we know that there are people who are more vulnerable to pricing. And so when people are on food assistance, we have programs where they're not going to pay full price. We want to make sure that there's a real choice. This is not a food bank, so we're not out trying to give away all the food, although we do have some of the things we deal with when we have to prevent food waste. But we want to make sure that people have a legitimate choice versus some of those other options you're talking about. And say, how do we get it within range where it's a real choice and not just, I wish I could, but it would be irresponsible for me and my family to do that. We don't want that. So there'll be, both in the curation of the set, tiers of pricing, there'll be high quality stuff that we're going to make like practically zero margin on, honestly, maybe lose a little bit, just to make sure that we're nourishing the full community and making sure any shopper has opportunities to save when they feel they need to. But there'll also be some premium things, whole animal butchery and dry aged steaks are not going to be free. That's where you make it up sometimes. If you've got the money to buy dry aged steaks, please do. It helps us sell some of the other stuff at a price, right? So that's really the long and the short of it is we're low margin as well, and we're not going to compromise quality in chasing the price point either. Yeah?
So I want to just add a couple of comments. I actually think that this is a really important question and something that we need to do a lot more work on. It highlights the importance of things like owner growth, the importance of things like programming that we can put into this space, because if we don't have the returns that are necessary to do the good that we all collectively want to do, we're sort of yelling at the wind as it relates to the mission. And so I think that there's a lot more work to do to think through what the financial profile of this organization looks like in the steady state versus just sort of assuming that it's all going to work out. So I think that's an important question that we really do want more members to be a part of.
Thank you, Dan and Chris. Any additional questions? Yes, excellent. Come on down.
Well, I just heard about the trips to the farm, and I guess I was wondering, well, I've never really been to any one of these farms before, so I was like, when do you go and can I come? I don't know, can owners go? Like, I would love to see firsthand that experience of connecting with farmers in that way.
Field trips.
Okay, this one's super brief. Yeah, if you're really interested, that's totally reasonable. I mean, now just remember, it's a long day. I think the last time I went out down to see some Amish, and I think I was out of town at 5 a.m. and I got back at 1 a.m. So sometimes these are long, but if you're down for that, it would be awesome. It's a lot less boring. I ride in the car sometimes by myself. It's boring. Sometimes Grant goes a lot, but we've had some owners join, and I think it would be great. It's another way. It's your store. I think it'll be better for everybody. We don't pay you for it. It's volunteer time.
I think we've also talked about, board has talked and mentioned to Dan that we would love to have farmers coming into our store on a regular basis, as well as opportunities for us to go do farm dinners or things like that on some of the farms of the vendors that we do. Yeah, apps for that for sure.
Dan or any board member, what is a great way for an owner to initiate communication on such an activity?
Board at chicagomarket.coop or GM, general manager, GM at chicagomarket.coop.
Thank you. I'd love a field trip. That sounds like a lot of fun. Any additional questions? I'm good at an awkward silence. Cool. Well, like I mentioned, we got board members hanging out to answer more questions that you might have, and Dana will close us out.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for your patience. We do have all of our wonderful vendors who are still here with us, so I do want to do some thank yous and call outs. We've heard about Collective Resource, our composting partner who will be our compost partner in our future store. Recently became a co-op themselves and a business owner of Chicago Market. Chicago Fair Trade, again, we're proud to be an ally of theirs, and they're right down the street, so please check out the first ever museum. Rebuilding Exchange. I did want to mention something specific on this. They're a nonprofit with a mission to keep building materials out of landfills and train people and do a bunch of other wonderful things. And they will have an activity where in our kind of cafeteria and seating area in the store, we as owners are going to have an opportunity to build some of the tables that are going to be in our store. So if you're interested in that, it won't be until like Q2 next year, but sign up at their table and put a big star by your name so they know you want to be part of building something with reused materials that'll be in our store. And then our 5 food and drink vendors, we've got, of course, Chicago Cane Cooperative. Can't wait to try some of their stuff. They are working towards a more sustainable and transparent liquor industry. Metropolis Coffee, small batch artisan coffee. They just want everyone in the world to have a good cup of coffee, and we are going to have it in our store because they are working with Dan to actually build out and design our coffee department and spec all of our equipment. They are a business owner of Chicago Market. Blooming Baker, who made those amazing brownies. Isn't it crazy to eat brownies with flowers all over them? They're awesome. But Tammy is an amazing baker and floral designer, and she combines the two and is a vendor at our Uptown Farmers Market. Candid Wines, thoughtfully farmed and exquisitely made wines from around the world. They have supported us in so many events, and of course are a business owner of Chicago Market. Prairie Foods Cheese, and of course Mickey, who is manning the table for them. Prairie Foods Farm and Creamery is actually an AWA certified goat dairy creamery. AWA stands for Animal Welfare Approved. So you can feel good about eating that cheese, and Mickey can tell you all about it at that table. That's it for today, so we just want to say thank you so much. We are doing an after party, so great way to meet fellow owners is to join us at that Two Bears Tavern, again, just out the door and across this little side street here, and you'll see it. Any cars that are parked in our parking lot can remain there until 7:30 p.m. and then our towing will resume, so feel free to keep your car there, but after 7:30, you're at risk of towing. So thank you so much for being part of our cooperative and being an owner. We appreciate each and every one of you, so thank you so much.